Hello there. Welcome back. I am so honored to have Lindsey Wise with us here today. Hi, Lindsey. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Beth.
It's so good to have you. We were just talking about what inspired me to reach out to you, and I had been following your work and kind of known who you were for a while. And then there was this one post. I think it was back maybe in December, November, December, January. I don't know. I was in such a deep portal myself, and it was this beautiful post about the death and ushering in death and the beauty of holding that space. And it just touched me so much. And I have been, for many years, really interested in interviewing people working in the death field. And I've maybe only done five, six interviews because it's still so new, even though it's ancient. And yeah, that's what inspired me to bring you on. So let's get into it. The first question I always love to hear about is your own path. What got you to where you are today? This work that you do in the world, your voice, the death work, the energy work, and then leading groups. And I always love to know, did you have some kind of completely different 180 life, 20 years ago? I always say, were you a corporate attorney?
Oh,
Then you woke up and found yourself here. But no, I'd love to hear a little bit about your story. Yeah.
sure. Well, I definitely was not a corporate attorney, but I did leave home at 16, left home from really strong religious roots, and began traveling the world and started studying Reiki and yoga and meditation and traveling in India and Thailand and all around the world. And I would say that, my work with plants began when I was 12 with Santa Maria, and then at 14, started getting into macrodosing psilocybin, the first time a bit accidentally. And then that brought me into my ability to be able to help to support others and to go deeper into the healing arts of plants and to find a ceremonial nature with the wisdom that the plants offer because I was really following plant-led wisdom. And I had an experience that brought me to a lot of grief. I had a partner that passed in a car accident, and I was quite bitter. And yet I found my now husband. And when I was giving birth to our daughter, I had an experience where I bled to death. And in that near death experience, I was surrounded by multitudes of light beings, and they were all emanating sonic frequency, sounded like a crystal bowl, uh, just surrounded by all of these light beings that initiated me into the realm of sonic frequency so fully that I had a hard time coming back into my body. They electrically resuscitated me and offered me 5 units of blood to get me back in my body. And coming back in, my voice had shifted, and I knew my soul frequency. I knew my soul name as Anakosha. And so I also had seen that Lindsay is, my birth name. I saw that it was a whole different realm of consciousness. And I got to be in the spirit realm for what felt like eons, resting in the ocean as a crystalline pearl and then coming back in. I know that my calling is helping others to activate their voice as well as their soul frequencies. So that was really when I actually got into some of the even more powerful plant medicines and began working with ayahuasca and wachuma and iboga and traveling the world with these types of plant medicines. And a part of why I really wanted to get into those medicines was because I wanted to go back to the experience that I had had when I died. And so naturally, I began supporting with birth and death doula work. And it happened very organically. I was volunteering in a birth center, and there was an Indonesian woman that needed help. And I was beckoned from teaching yoga to go and hold her hand and be with her. And then I stayed for her birth and many more births after that. And then for my first death was when I was offering a sound healing. and one of the women had a brain aneurysm, and I held her as she passed. And I sang to her, and the song that came through was Bob Marley's "Don't worry about a thing, every little thing is gonna be all right." And she just smiled and passed. And that was really my initiation into this work. And I was shown truly that there's no separation between birth and death. And I love to meet in the middle.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. I love hearing these stories. I had a client a few years ago who also became a death doula through her own death experience. And I wouldn't say it was near death because it was like yours, where she died, experienced death, and then didn't go all the way, but very similar story, and it was interesting because she's just so, like, oh, since that experience, I have zero fear of death whatsoever. Like, zero qualms. Like, it's just this liberation of the experience of knowing, like, the divinity, and also that same experience of being in that held space. I only know it as that, like, the depths of going into the void where you're in the connection with spirit, and some people know it through, like, the ultimate DMT experience. But and for those of us that have read Journey of Souls, we've heard numerous stories about this. It's so beautiful to hear it. So I'm curious, the death world. That this is one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, because I've been navigating this with an elderly mom, and who knows how long it'll be, but it's been like that feeling, and we had to make some of those decisions where it's like DNR, and now it's, if something happens, that's it. But And I've had clients in the death doula realm, and a lot of us have this vision for doing death differently, especially here in the Western world, the modern United States. But I have found that it's still so taboo. Like, it's so, I think as a country, we experienced this during COVID, right? Or as a world even. There was just so much fear around it, and it's like this avoidance of death. And throughout that, I just kept wondering, like, how do we do this differently? Like, what does the future hold for the experience of death as humanity? Like, do you have any views on this, or any visions for where this might go over the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years? Like the short-term future of our lives?
Yes. Well, what you had originally said really struck a chord about how the people who have had these death or near-death experiences are washed clean from a fear of death. And that was something that I truly felt. Even getting to see, the beloved that I'd mentioned who had passed on during that near-death experience, and coming back into my body and not having a bitterness around loss and grief, and to know that all of the souls that have moved on or that are moving on have really graduated. And that is something that is quite unique. And I think it can also be annoying for people that want to be stuck in a really deep grief or worry about the future of the unseen realms and passing on. And yet the truth is that we are all going to die. It's inevitable. And so what these stories that you mentioned from Journey of Soul and from beloveds that are, now multiplying, more people talking about this, it's becoming less taboo for us to also be finding people who have passed on, who don't have so much fear about it. It's not so taboo. And we can be talking about this and creating safer and more peaceful passing. In fact, in my very first ayahuasca journey, my first ever, I was shown that I'm meant to create a center called Passing in Peace for elders to have these rite of passage works. And at first I was like, that's a really big job. And I saw it clearly. And now this beautiful home I'm in, we have 17 acres. And I see that this space is actually waiting for passing in peace. So, coming back to that question, in the next 30 years or so for our world, I think that it's finally time for us to really adopt some of the wisdom from places like Indonesia, in Bali, where I was living for 8 years, they don't have nursing homes. And, they really allow the parents to come and be with the family. And so I believe that our world is coming into a space where that's going to become more and more normalized and that there can be less fear. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've said this for years. I'm like, I really hope there's these retreat centers where we can go and like die, like consciously die, die with peace, die gracefully. Like ritualize that end of life process. And me and some friends are constantly talking about like, okay, let's start creating this now because we have 40, 50 years left to figure out how we can do this end of life process differently. And I have to say, as someone who's just really been navigating the very traditional Western system of getting a parent, like I have the typical American story where we didn't live near my mom for various reasons. And then it was like, well, what's the decision? And how do we do it? And how do we afford it? And then the system and the red tape. I mean, I could go on and on. And it's just so, it takes a lot of the heart, excuse me, the heart out of the process and gets into a lot of the logistics and the paperwork. And it just, then you don't even have time to grieve. And it's interesting. I would love to hear more about what you were saying, that there is something, and I wonder if there's like a programming in humanity where instead of being able to embrace death and this process, there's some kind of like you said, this bitterness or like the holding on or the victim, even the victim mentality. And it's sensitive, it's a very sensitive thing to talk about. It's like we can't write off someone's, loss and just be like, oh, you'll get over it. But like even I feel like even what we witnessed when there was this like worldwide pandemic and there was all these deaths, it's like, well, who's to say what's right or wrong? Like of course no one wants to see mass death or mass, genocide or anything like war. But at the same time, you mentioned what was it like they came here and did like their lesson, right? Their journey.
Mhm. Yeah, they
How do you make
complete.
sense of it? Yeah.
Yeah, that we get to complete our mission and then essentially we graduate. It's something to be celebrated. My brother chose to leave this earth plane, and my family, including myself, had such a deep grief portal. And when I spoke to my dear teacher in Peru, his name's Puma, he said, my love, he calls everyone loves because we're all loves. He said, in other times, it wasn't something that was so shameful for someone to feel complete with their time here on earth and then to move on. We would honor that and be like, okay, they were complete with their mission and they've moved on. And my brother came to me in a number of journeys and did some very powerful healing and showed me how he was quite stuck. And with a lot of presence, he moved through his process and came into a space of freedom. And then he also was showing me how to help my mom, who was stuck grieving and kept holding this statue. And he came and showed me in a ceremony that my mom needed to burn the statue to set her grief free. And sure enough, when she did, that statue exploded and she started to sing again and she really came back into herself. So this is also something that's quite taboo, is how we can also process the grief of our loved ones and to be able to carry on celebrating their lives. I've been helping a lot of people going through their deceased loved ones' belongings and helping to clear them out of their home. And I'm talking about people who've waited years. And finally, they're able to ceremonially welcome me into their homes. I mean, what an honor. And go through things and let them go and donate them to homeless shelters and, to organizations that help people in need. And so it gives a sense of purpose for the material things. And they always tell me, oh, I thought that I was honoring my loved one by keeping all of this stuff. But as soon as I let it go, as soon as it's cleared, it feels like they always tell me like they've lost hundreds of thousands of pounds of weight and stuck energy. And so that's what I feel like is happening in these next 10, 20, 30 years and beyond, is that we're finally starting to let go of what is not even ours to hold and carry for our loved ones, and perhaps to even help them to give away things and move on before they pass, so that there's something much greater as a legacy for their loved ones.
I know, I'm like trying to not cry. This is so beautiful. Yeah, because I actually just a month and a half ago, did that. I went through my mom's house of 32 years, and I had to go through every square inch by myself. No one was helping me, and like find all the things. And it was very interesting and very deep and sad. And, you know, it was like mementos from childhood, things from her and my stepdad, you know, like his ring and, you know, just like these little things. And I'm like, what do I hold on to and why? You know, it was kind of like, what's the intention? And in the very end, it was like just a little bit, you know, just enough, because most, you know, and I was really back and forth. And it's a deep process. It's like, well, what does this all mean? And then in the end, it's material items, but the memories are in my heart. But I think that is an amazing service, by the way, because, you know, I had one friend that's like, just don't take anything. You won't want it anyways. And very like nonchalant. But then when you're in the process, it's so deep. Because it's like, it's a true like letting go and saying goodbye. And like you said, there's, you know, many ways to do this, maybe many years before you have to do it. So I really love that. And I think this is something just in our world that does need to be addressed so much more. You know, I have found that the death and the grief process is so different for everybody, and it can be so debilitating. I've seen, actually in the last year, I had two clients go through the death of their father. One, like they were both in grief, but one completely like dropped off the face of the earth for months and months and months and months. And the other dropped off, but like still kept going. And it was really interesting just to witness how two people process, and both were like sudden deaths so differently, you know, and to see how it affects their lives. And for some people, it can really like take them down for years even. So I'm really glad you're doing this. Now I'm curious, you know, when you were brought to the medicine, did you actively seek to these like death experiences, like iboga, for instance? That's one I actually have only worked with in small amounts, but not done like the full, you know, 2 day, 5 day type experience. But yeah, like what is it that you believe that these plants are helping people with when it comes to, you know, life, death, the process of, you know, being a human embodied here in 2025 and beyond?
Mm, what a deep question. Well, I dove into 3 days of an initiation with Iboga, and I went into it very similarly how I had gone into working with ayahuasca, wanting to connect with the spirit realms, and I was taken deep into the core of the earth and really shown our ancestral ancestors of the elements, and was also shown both in my near-death experience and in that medicine work how focusing on the 7 generations before and behind us is very beautiful, and yet can cause a hindrance when we're only focusing on what's happened to humanity for, you know, the last 100 of years, you know, even 700 years of time period, when it is so much more vast. And I was taken into being fully connected with the tsunamis and the earthquakes and I always joke about my greatest grandmother, Sue Nami, and how she was a force. And like feeling into the ancient grandfather of the fire and feeling how we are these elemental frequencies. And yet we have an overculture who has really tried to make us believe that we're all sorts of different things, when really, when we get back into the roots and back in with this plant-led wisdom, we understand the vastness of the universe and how the whole of creation and the universe, every single plant, every being, every crystal is all a part of our molecular structure. And we are this sacred makeup of the whole of creation. And we get to vibrate and connect with each other in such a beautiful way. And especially in 2025 and beyond, there's a lot of separation. There's a lot of pointing fingers of us and them and comparing and really causing us to separate from our nature, which is love and being together as community and soul family. And so getting to go and be, with that medicine and connect in with nature was so powerful because it helped me to awaken to who I really am and the potency of what this body and my songs and everything that I'm channeling really is connected to. And I would say for many of the people, like you mentioned, that are grieving, that allow themselves to either ingest plant medicine. Not all plant medicine is for everyone. It's finding what works for the individual. You mentioned that individual experience as well is so unique. And yet, most people that do allow themselves to have a journey with plant medicine or to even welcome in the essence of any of these master plant teachers to come into the consciousness and commune with them, even, just the essence of it, they usually are able to connect with those who have passed and moved on and come to a deeper sense of freedom and letting go of old energy and grief. And again, what was never theirs to carry. So that's the vision that I'm holding for 2025 and beyond, is that we have a lot of dense energy and shadow that's being illuminated. There's a lot of light coming. And I believe that it's not only from the plant teachers, but it's from all of the ancestors that go so much farther back than 7 generations. It goes beyond the beyond the beyond of what we could even fathom. And that is the force of nature that is helping to wake up humanity in every breath.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, this is the medicine we need right now. It's really interesting just observing what's happening out there at least in the US collective, where it's just so prevalent right now, the othering and the finger pointing and the separation just seems to get stronger every day. And when I say it's like in the general gist of the collective, I don't know, like thankfully most of the people I surround with myself get it. Meaning like I have friends that are completely disagree on everything, but somehow we all still get along, we can still honor one another and honor like, okay, so we have different views of the world. Like that's your map of your reality. And this is the map of my reality, but I still love you and can honor your path and have compassion that there's 8 billion people and we're all going to be a little different. And so this is, like you said, I think the one thing that keeps us together is this deeper connection to the earth. It's like all of us might not agree on everything, but we still have the same intentions for life and service. And, even if we don't agree, Gaia is still our teacher. Like we are here as channels, like you said. So thank you for sharing this. And it's, when I hear people just getting so up in arms, and then of course that causes more grief and more upset. And, it's almost like this enjoy. I keep wondering, like, do people enjoy the suffering? Are we like really into our drama right now? Like, I mean, there's a reality to like, okay, I'm not here to just deny what's happening, but you said there's a vastness, there's so much more. There's more to the story than even 7 generations, so much deeper than that. And like you said, like this holding on, one of the modalities I've been studying for the past year or so, one of my teachers calls it suffering obligations of love, SOL, shit out of luck. But like this deep epigenetic, energies that we're carrying for generations and generations. It's like on our DNA, it's in our programming, in our ways of being. And so many of us hold on to it, whether consciously or not. And it feels like there's a lot of support to be moving through that, like letting it go, purging, because, like you said, okay, there's a lot of light, there's something bigger happening. Now, I'm curious, your work with the medicine, especially ayahuasca, who I have been working with for about 13 years now, 12 or 13 years. And it's interesting how I don't know if it's me or, just the path I'm on, but I feel like I've noticed a lot of shift in the way energetically the medicine responds. And I don't know if that's because of the collective or just the speed at which, the world is moving at. Do you have any observations on that, like in your experience over however many years? Like, it used to be this way and now it's this way, and maybe it's not for everyone. And, I keep hearing more and more stories of people like having kind of, I don't want to use the word negative because I don't like to use that, but, like less than pleasant experiences where it actually seems to be more detrimental than helpful. Like, do you have any views on that or any observations of what's happening out there in the medicine world lately?
Well, one of the feelings that I have with this medicine is that she often illuminates some of the things that we don't want to look at. Let's face it. Yeah. So it can also feel like, looking underneath a rug and seeing what's there. And I think that in this day and age, there's already a lot happening in the conscious world that we're seeing every day. So it takes a special kind of a person who is willing to go and check out what's happening under the rug and actually seek to do healing and transformational work in these subconscious realms. I also, I really believe that the people that are doing this work are doing so much transformation and healing for, as you mentioned, the genetic makeup and for their ancestors and for what's in the bloodline, of their families. And so the people that are doing this work need to be really ready for it. And I feel like if people aren't able to ingest plant medicines, they're doing different kinds of healing. And when it comes to karma, or what goes around comes around, there is something that's inevitable about us doing the work that we're meant to and really following through with our mission. And it's in all different ways, shapes, and forms. So, yeah, that's something that I'm feeling. Also, that we have a lot of people right now. We've got a bit of an epidemic in the world of people who are working with antidepressants. For example, we went and visited my husband's grandmother at the beginning of COVID, and she was 92. She was in a nursing home. And right at the beginning of COVID, they'd put her on antidepressants. And and actually it turned out that they did that with most elders because they just wanted to avoid them from feeling, it really numbed them. And so when I asked her, I said, "How are you doing?" She said, "I don't know." And I said, "Well, when's the last time you had a really good cry?" And she said, "I can't remember." And I asked her, "Do you want to come and live in my healing room and, move away from being in this nursing home?" And she said yes, like immediately. And she went from being in the emergency room every week to never needing to go and visit the doctor for a whole year. She went for one checkup, and she came and lived with us. And something that you mentioned also is about kind of like teaching a way forward for elders that you and your friends are talking about. And when we helped her for that year and I, massaged her and offered plant medicines and healing, my husband asked, he's like, "Are you doing this so that our three children are going to learn how to take care of you when you're an elder?" And I said, "Yes." Not just
Good
for
idea.
me. Yeah, not just for me, but for for everyone. I saw, that we've got a bit of an epidemic here of antidepressants, of numbing, of shaming, of us and them, and kind of putting things away in a cupboard that aren't fun to look at. And so I think most people aren't really as interested in doing plant medicine work that is going to shine a flashlight on everything that they've stuck in a cupboard and don't really want to look at. Yeah. And that's what these medicines often are so beautiful at helping us to do. But once you take the key and you unlock the cupboard, that's why it's medicine. And you mentioned people don't want to purge, but we don't consider that getting sick. We view that as getting well
Pure.
and opening up the cupboard. Yeah, Pandora's box. And there's a plethora of miracles that come when we have the courage to say yes to doing that.
Yeah. I always say, if you're scared, just say thank you. It's like a purification. It's like thank you so much. Composting, taking these energies, these traumas, these, doesn't even matter the words what they are. It's like whatever needs to leave, just let go. And I'm
Mhm.
eternally grateful for this medicine and just the healing it's had and the profound effects on my life. I always say, I don't think I would be here. I'm not sure I would be here if it weren't for, grandmother medicine. But thank you for bringing that up about our elders because, my brother and I actually experienced this and it was very heart wrenching. And I'm like, wait, is no one talking about this? Because it's not really like in our cultural conversation, but we try to avoid bringing my mom into a facility as long as humanly possible, which was a very hard journey. But the second you bring her, she's in the hospital or she has caregivers or hospice comes in, they just want to start giving the pills. And most of them, like, I was like, well, what does this do? It was like antidepressant, anti-anxiety, tranquil, like whatever, benzos essentially. And I'm like, but why? Like, nothing's wrong. But it was really like it's for the ease of the people who are caring. Like, oh, but it's easier if they're just kind of zombies. And I'm like, but that's not a quality of life. Like, give
Mm,
someone a pill and plop them in front of a TV, like for until they die, and that's it. I'm like, oh
yeah.
my God. Like my brother, even who's not at all on the path that I'm on, was just like, this doesn't work. Like, this is a really broken way of dealing, like who wants to live the last few years of your life like that?
Mhm.
So it's been a journey and it just really riled me up where I was like, wow, we really have to do this differently. Like, this is not going to work, not for, certain people like us. I think for my mom, it's like she didn't even have an awareness, wasn't even able to say yes or no. It was just like, here, take these. And it's great that you had that experience of like, hey, would you like to try this other way and really live the end of your life consciously, like
Mhm.
going about it with this intention. And that's what I want to see changing in this world. So I hope your work gets out there more and more. But let's talk a little bit about some of the other work you do. I know you have music published out there on Spotify, and I would put it in the medicine music category, but I don't know it because I don't know what else to call it these days. But yeah, talk a little bit about your voice and then some of the other work you do. You're about to go to Peru, which I
Mhm.
love. Yeah, I'd love to hear a little
Yes.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to circle back to you and your brother being like, why would you want to do this? And before I answer that question, I'll say we had a family member who's a doctor who found out that I was weaning, great grandma off of these meds. And he's like, well, why would you do that? Why don't you just keep her on this cup of meds until she passes? It'll make it way easier for you. The same thing. And I said, because I want her to be awake
Yeah.
when she passes. And something that I saw in my near death experience and medicine work is that it's as though the elders are being factory farmed for their resources, and paying, like, their insurance is going up the wazoo to keep them alive, and a lot of these meds are keeping them numbed and alive longer. So that's something that I'm seeing. And then we go into the next cycle of birth, and if women are always having if elders are dying and they're having morphine and they're numbed out, and then they are born through epidurals and other medicines that are keeping them numb, it's much easier for humans to be very malleable and controlled. And so that gets into the power of nature and helping to bring us back to our true nature so that we can rise up and fulfill our missions. Otherwise, we're kept numbed and dumbed and in a bit of a slumber. And so that's where the answer to that question about medicine music comes in, because as we are in ceremony, really it's the music and the Icaros. You and I both have Icaros lines behind us. It's the song lines of the plants that carry us through medicine ceremony. And usually after a time of hearing songs and prayers that are in different languages so that the mind can go beyond words and needing to comprehend, we do have songs that are in English, and it's a part of reprogramming while the neuroplasticity is hot. Everything wants to be transformed in a beautiful, awakening remembrance. And so that's where medicine music comes in. And I actually recorded my first album in Bali. I don't have it on Spotify. You can find it on Bandcamp, but it was like a learning experience. And then I have my second album is Walk in Beauty. And my third album I recorded alongside my beautiful husband. We've been married now for 19 years, and we sing and pray and play together. And so we recorded that music, and there's a beautiful collective called Risueño for all of y'all that want to find music. And Risueño is an initiative created by a brother named Mose, and it's medicine music, all of these musicians. And when he asked us to be on that Risueño label, he suggested that we remix the whole album. So it went from being acoustic into being more down-tempo bass and getting some beats. Getting my teacher in Peru of sound healing is named Tito La Rosa, and my friend and producer Geometry put some bass beats to his work, and just getting us dancing prayers. I went, actually, speaking of medicine work, I went to my aunt's hospice just before she passed and offered a medicine journey for her while she was still lucid. She gave me permission. And don't ask me all the details, but it was profound and beautiful. And her name is Frances. And shortly after, in Peru, in a ceremony, I got guided to create a reggae version of the prayer of Saint Francis. And that just got released and redubbed, remixed dub style from Markandeya. And so, yeah, you can find all of the music on the platforms. And if you want to learn more about medicine music, you're going to find a whole genre that is also awakening and getting more well known. And I'm honored to help be a pioneer of this music and getting it out there. For me as well, I get really excited about other people singing and dancing and moving and living these prayers. And so a lot of the songs and the music that I have are intended for people to be able to dance and move while they're singing and offering ancient prayer and mantra and healing. So, that for me is also a very deep part of the healing that our world needs, especially now in 2025. It's time to sing. It's time to dance. It's time to awaken the village to the fact that we're all family. We're all related, going back and back and back into when our souls really began this journey eons ago, as energy, whatever it is you believe in, even if it's the universe, we're talking stars here. But all of this is a part of the vibration and the sonic frequency that we're all emanating all the time, no matter what. That takes me back to the near death experience, having all of the multitudes, each toning a different, unique frequency. And so, coming back in my body, so many people have said, I can't sing, I don't have a good voice. And I don't think that people realize that we're always singing, we're always providing a frequency, even energetically. And what we're really coming back to is how to harmonize and be in balance with each other, even though we all are reverberating at a different note, a different frequency. We're actually all in harmony with the plants, with nature, and with each other.
Oh, so beautifully said. And yeah, I personally believe that song, singing, our voice is such a needed medicine. I mean, in my personal opinion, my personal experience, it's the only thing that keeps me in this vibration. Like I sing regularly. I thankfully live in a community where there's song circles multiple times a week. There's ceremony, and one of the lineages I sit with lets us sing with the Icaros, and I mean that's just beautiful. And yeah, and it doesn't matter if you think your voice is good or not, because that's not what it's about. It's about like your own internal vibration. Like sharing it, putting it out there, and doing it for yourself, because it feels good. It's like getting an internal massage. I always say that's so beautiful. And I heard on one of your albums, you have Butterfly People, which is a song I learned so long ago. And your rendition of it has some mantra in it, and it's just so beautiful. And it's funny because I finally sang it for the very first time just a couple months ago. And I'm like, wow, I've known that song for so long, and I've never sang it in front of anybody. So I just want to point that out. Then I was like, wow,
Yes, I can, and
such
I'll
a
share
sweet
a little
song.
bit. I was with a dear medicine brother who has passed on. His name is Diego Palma, and his wife, her name is Milagros. And in the dark, in ceremony, she said, Lindsay, this song is for you. And she sang Butterfly People. And I carried it back to Bali, where I lived, and I sang it to my son, Jasper, every night, and he loved it. It was his favorite lullaby. And then one night, as I was singing it, to the exact same cadence and tempo, the Tibetan mantra came through. And when it came through, I knew the mantra, but I was like, what's the exact meaning? I asked the Google Oracle, and the translation is gone, gone beyond the shores, never to return. All hail the enlightened one. And the words to that Butterfly People are on the shores of a mystical ocean, there lies a cave with a magical door. All are welcome, but those who enter never shall return, not a single day more. Can you feel the rhythm of my heartbeat, beating in time with the drum on your hands? Fly away on the waves of the ocean, seeking and finding the butterfly people. And that's what they say about these medicines is those who enter are never to return. It's a type of enlightenment and awakening. And so it really is so beautiful that I love that you're singing that song and that you're in community. And one of my favorite pieces is how these medicine songs have become ingrained in my children's hearts. And, they'll be playing on their scooters or doing art, and they're singing ikuros and medicine songs that they learned from when they were young. And I feel like it's rippling out and sharing this beautiful medicine through the sonic frequencies of love.
I love it because I have some friends with kids that are quite young, 6 years old, and they know every single ikuro just 'cause they hear their parents playing and practicing, and it's so beautiful. And I've been saying for years, and I do believe this will be true. We're not there yet, but I said one day this is going to become mainstream, meaning like maybe we'll hear this songs centered around love and openness and connection, and connection to spirit realms more than, I don't know, what are they singing about these days? Like
Being drunk
sex,
in the back
drugs,
of the
luck.
car,
Oh, yeah.
all of that. I'm learning as a mother with two teenagers that it's a big surrender, and a trust is what it's taking right now as well with what we're seeing and what's happening in the world. And I'm going to hold that vision with you that we can turn the radio on and have this beautiful music that we love so much. But at least for now, we've got other types of radios and being able to play it on different platforms. So it's there.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, the world I'm in, it seems pretty mainstream. It kind of depends on where you live, where you go, and you go to Costa Rica, it's like, oh yeah, it's everywhere. But it's funny because I do believe it'll get there, and more and more, even just seeing all the musicians that are getting remixed, or the collaborations that are becoming a little more mainstream. So we'll get there. I know it. So I want to, I don't want to keep you long, but I want to ask one more thing. You're about to go to Peru. Let's hear a little bit about this. Do you bring groups down to Peru on a regular basis? Is it, retreats? And I'm curious, like, how is the medicine retreats in Peru world going? I keep wondering if has it slowed down because there's so many medicine, this and that, all over the place, or is it still just going strong because more and more people know that this is a beautiful plant ally? I'm curious what the vibe is with the medicine retreat world.
Sure. Well, I think that there are still a lot of people that are very curious and wanting to work with medicines. And so now more than ever, it's very essential to make sure that you're going to places that are safe and very well held. I've heard a lot of stories about centers that are not safe, especially for female bodies, going and traveling. It can be a bit dangerous. And so, if this conversation is sparking curiosity and interest, I would say really do your due diligence before traveling to the jungle. I've been working a lot in the jungle, and the last time that I went, I did get quite sick. And I've been guided to be with the Apus, which are the sacred mountains in the sacred valley. And I'm focusing my healing and the immersions that I'm supporting on being there in Sacred Valley. And I'm actually supporting the Shift Network. And that's a beautiful offering that is getting a lot of teachers who are doing online courses all about shamanism, sound healing, plant wisdom, and they are bringing groups there to Valle Sagrado, to Sacred Valley, to work with the teacher that I mentioned, Puma Quispe Freddy Singona. So I'm working with him. And then Tito La Rosa is a living legend of sound healing. So this next immersion is focused on sound healing. And we get to go to sacred sites and travel around and work with the sonic frequencies in the sacred sites, working with the plant medicines. And it's been such a beautiful gift to get to go and travel there. And one of my favorite things about it is waking up early, even before dawn, and being there with the river, with the flowers, and listening to all of the wisdom from the Apus, the mountains, and the nature spirits there. It feels so divine. And I'm doing a lot of work also with what I do, helping people to open up their voices and do a lot of singing and dancing, and also supporting with the integration. So I'm doing integration pods there, and then we do before and after pods. And yeah, that's something that I also do for people, whether you've been with me in ceremony or not, if you feel inspired to have support with integration around a journey. Sometimes people they'll reach out to me and they feel like they didn't really get grounded back in their body after a journey, or they didn't have somebody that really understood what they were talking about. And so I support with the integration process. And I feel like that's 99.9% of this work, whereas getting to go and be in the ceremony is like just, a small part of it. And then what's really important is how we're taking this wisdom into our daily lives. So that really lights me up. And here in my community, I'm in Grass Valley, California, and I host a lot of song circles and community events and offerings and healing work here. And I really absolutely love supporting humans on their unique process and where they're at, whether I'm there in Peru or it's through a Zoom room or in person. We really get to just meet in the heart. And so I would say if you have any FOMO about not being able to get to Peru or to any of the places that we've mentioned, that we've been able to travel, I would really welcome you to shift the FOMO into JOMO, which instead of the fear of missing out is the joy of missing out. And knowing that really, like, wherever you're at is where you're meant to be. And there's so much healing that's happening right where you have been appointed. And let's face it, we all get kind of picked up and put in different places. And sometimes it's kicking and screaming. I know I've been there myself and, shifted into different parts of the world. And yet I know I'm always where I'm meant to be. And so, as much as I love getting to be there in South America and traveling, I know that there is so much healing and transformation for all of us all around the world. Yeah.
Wow. So beautiful. And yeah, thank you for naming that, especially about doing due diligence, because yes, I hear a lot of stories that are unfortunate, and it's a big deal to go with a good group and a good place, and the jungle's not for everybody. It's like no joke. Like I haven't been there
Mhm.
since 2019 because it was like you. I'm like, okay, that was a really hard experience on my body for those many years that I went, and now it's like, okay, a different way. And it's, not everybody needs to be pounded physically or get sick or be
Right.
sleeping next to tarantulas like that.
Yeah.
But
And that piece also about really protecting our sexual energy,
mm,
that's essential with these medicines because we're so open and clear. So I really love working with guides who are also female bodied, or, you're going to find guides that you feel very safe to lean in with. If it feels more like a very safe energy, you want to really assure that before you would travel and drink medicine with anyone, and to make sure that you're very protected because you're more open and clear than you've ever been. And so you want to really honor that.
yeah, beautiful. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for being here. This is so good to get to know you, especially right before you head off to Peru. This is just giving me a lot of inspiration and hope for the future. And I do believe this death work, like the more we talk about it, the more we get it out there, and the more we just have these conversations, the more it's going to change and shift. And thank you so much for doing this work on the world. I think it's so important and it's so needed. And I have hope. I really do. I tend to be an optimist, and I do believe, as crazy as things sometimes seem, that there's a good group of people on planet Earth that are
Oh,
taking
yeah.
things in the right direction.
Yes. And bless your mama and her
Oh.
journey and everything that you and your brother have been doing for her, because I know that that's a part of what seeds this work for you and the healthy transformations that are happening. So thank you for what you're doing and all of these inspiring conversations that you're creating. Thank you so much, Beth. It's really an honor to get to be with you here.
Thank you. And we'll have your links right here in the show notes. If anyone wants to reach out or listen to any of the music, we'll have it right here. And thank you, Lindsay. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you so much.